Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek Podcast, and I've got Ben Jones here today with Titan Marketing, and I thought it'd be exciting to have someone like Ben on because a lot of the conversations I see on the Facebook groups for the shed industry and just watching some of the content that's happening there in the conversations as I keep my eye on it is some people say having marketing inside of the industry matters. Some say an outsider's perspective matters. I think it's just good to get an account for both. So Ben, welcome to the show. Just maybe introduce yourself a little about who you are and what you do.
Cool. Look, thanks for having me. I really appreciate being here, and hopefully I can add some value to the people who are listening. So, look, I mean, a little bit about me in 5 seconds or less. I run a marketing.
Yeah, go for it. Sorry, no, go for it. I thought you was asking a question. I'm sorry.
No. Look, obviously I run a marketing agency and consulting firm. We specialize in YouTube advertising, but happy to speak on advertising in general, from paid to social to whatever. I've been doing marketing for heaps of years now, and I guess what we are specialists in particular is just using YouTube ads to really help businesses grow. We've generated millions of dollars in a wide range of different industries. It really doesn't matter the industry that you're in. In this case, obviously, we're talking sheds and all things sheds. So, however you want to market, particularly on the paid side, you need to be able to get that minimum. Like if you put $1 in, you should be getting at least sort of $3 back in what's called return on ad spend. So that's really important. And then other than that, it's just about, outreach. How do you get the leads that you're looking for? How do you convert them into sales? So, happy to try and answer as many questions as I can and help you guys from there. So.
Well, that's great. I think it's awesome to have an outsider in perspective. And sometimes we get in a fishbowl and can't necessarily see outside of our industry. And it's really good, I think, to get a professional opinion from the outside in. And some of you may have already noticed the difference in how we sound. Well, that's because Ben's coming to us from Perth, Australia. So I would like to say our first international guest. Unfortunately, we've had a couple, at least one or two others, Ben, but I'm excited to add you to that list, sir.
Thank you so much. Look, I mean, we have a lot of US clients, actually, and UK clients. So we are a global company, but it is always cool. Like, I think some people think I sound English. Some people think I sound Australian. I have a bit of a weird accent. Australia has lots of different sort of accents, I guess you'd say. Mine is a little bit more rounded and a little less like, Steve Irwin. But yeah, glad to be here nonetheless.
Yeah, I was about to say, I can only imagine all of the American folks that constantly talk about the sound or the dialect, the language barrier. How many times do you get asked to say certain things from? I mean, I love the word aluminum pronounced in Australia.
Yeah, aluminum.
So you actually say aluminum. So like most.
Yeah, we usually say. Sorry, yeah.
Aluminium, right?
Yeah, aluminium is how you'd say it. Yeah. So I used to actually do some work with an aluminium company. But yeah, the Americans would all call it aluminum. So I just know when I'm speaking with Americans to change it up. But yeah, like other weird things too. Like I was speaking on stage in LA a little while ago, and I was talking about when you do your marketing and you get a certain amount of people to like rock up to something. And I had a whole room of people just go like, what on earth does rock up mean? And I'm like, yeah, like literally like, do you like bring rocks? And I'm like, no, you rock up to something. But in Australia, that means like you've attended something, like you would show up to something. Sure. And literally it took me about 15 minutes to communicate. And there's massive communication drama. And yeah, so like it is funny, like there are these just little things that are different. So
the main question is Australia, is it chips or is it crisp?
Both. So chips are hot. So they're like deep fried and hot. crisp are like what come out of a packet, and
Okay.
they're like cold, obviously. So
I love it. And you're actually, appreciate your dedication to coming on here today. So we're doing this at 4:00 Central Time in America, which would be 6 a.m. Your time there in Perth. Is that right?
that's correct. Yeah.
Wow. Well,
So
thank you so much for getting up so early and spending some time with us here this morning. And we know the audience will appreciate that. Yeah, what a great start. I already love it. Just the generalized conversation is kind of cool. And if you'd have told me whenever I started doing this, I'd get a chance to interview someone from Perth to talk sheds or marketing, even how that relates to sheds. How you said you deal with Americans. I'm going to ask this one last question, and we can get serious, I guess. How country do I sound in comparison to other Americans that you usually speak with?
yeah, so my business partner Marcus, actually, he's originally from Florida in the South, right? So I know it's a little bit different, but I kind of listen to that all day. So, um, so yeah, so he's sort of got that Southern accent. A lot of our marketing, we actually focus on that section of America, similar values to sort of what we have. So, and the time zone's usually nicer for us as well. So yeah, like quite a bit actually, probably more than you'd think, which is kind of fun. But yeah, I mean, the cool thing with the US is there is like quite a difference of accents, if you will, from north to south and east to west. So
For sure. They say Florida is the most non-southern southern state in most cases, but when I go to Florida or I go anywhere south, everyone says I'm a Yankee. I'm from up north, and whenever I go up north, everyone says I'm from the south. So I'm just kind of a misfit here, I think, Ben. But that's okay. So let's get into your personal career a little bit. Maybe tell us a little bit about your expertise and just things that you've done to kind of set the tone for the audience to understand what marketing looks like. You have started 3 different businesses: Youth in Business, Titan Marketer, and Coaching for Experts. Aside from being a serial entrepreneur and an international keynote speaker, and with a heavy focus on online marketing, tell me what all those mean and what you've kind of experienced through some of those adventures.
yeah. So Youth in Business is really cool. We basically teach kids how to start businesses before they finish school. Now we've got kids who've done like really massive businesses, left school, just walked straight into business. We've got kids doing 6 figures a month, all the way through to buying houses before they're 18, all the way to one of my students wrote a book on how to make more money than my principal, right, and asked me to write the forward. So like it's just amazing watching kids go out there and start businesses. I think it's probably one of the most important things we can do is teach the rising generation entrepreneurship, because they're not going to learn it in school, right? And if you can teach them like business skills, I mean, even if they don't become business owners, they'll be better employees. But more importantly, if you can teach them, how to make money doing what they enjoy, they'll never have to work a day in their life. So, so if you can take a business around what you enjoy, then that's where it's at. So, so for me, like really passionate about that. It started with my kids starting, wanting pocket money, and we got them to start their own businesses. I think my 3 kids in December last year, a couple of months ago, they had like a 30 grand month or something crazy. So it's really cool. I think teaching kids business is not only a good way to teach them to learn money skills, but teach them how to, look other adults in the face and speak and also be able to sell. And I think learning to sell is really important for young people today. And also to sort of live life on their terms. So pretty passionate about that one. We were doing events all over the place prior to COVID with that one, which is pretty cool. So like my marketing journey for that, we got pretty dialed in with that, which was fun. But I mean, prior to that, I was buying online businesses and I had to figure out how to market. I actually grew up on a farm, so the idea of online marketing to me was like really foreign. I didn't want a bar of it. But then sort of learning how it works like that, I was like, oh man, this is the future. So I had to like double down on it. So that was cool. Coaching for experts. I don't run that so much anymore. That was something we did prior to COVID. We would teach coaches and consultants how to sell from stage. So I do a lot of speaking. So we were helping people with that. And then obviously Titan Marketer. It's funny because while I was doing youth in business and helping coaches, I'd end up talking a little bit about marketing, and then other people would have me on their stages to talk about marketing. And I was like, oh, okay, fine. Because they could kind of see what was going on with my other businesses. And next thing I know, people are like, hey, man, can you help us? How does this work? And Titan Marketer was born just out of just pure referral more than anything. And we've been doing that for a number of years now, which is really cool. With a strong emphasis on YouTube advertising, which I think if you're going to pay for advertising at the moment, it's kind of where Facebook was a decade ago in terms of like paying for a click. And I'm not loyal to any one particular platform. If you had to ask me 7 or 8 years ago, it was all Facebook. So whatever works, like whatever's the platform that works at the moment. So, I mean, yeah, look, I've created multiple 7-figure businesses in this. I actually have another business where I buy up mining tenements, and I'm right into gold and a whole bunch of stuff as well. So yeah, I think serial entrepreneur is probably a loose term, but yeah, I've definitely created a few and marketed a few different businesses, not only my own, but others as well. So yeah,
that's great. Yeah, I definitely, I like the term serial entrepreneur. And for me, that comes back to creativity. And yeah, just so many things that you said there. Coaching is definitely something that in the shed industry, when you're oftentimes on an island by yourself, you sort of feel in a bit of a fishbowl to some extent. If you don't get around other sellers and other manufacturers who do what you do, it's always curious to know what others are seeing. So that coaching service kind of offers some form of solidity, some form of friendship, companionship to glean off of someone else and what they're seeing. But the youth in business, I think, is really cool. I've got a daughter who, was just able to go in the least amount of debt as possible. Her vehicle's paid for. They were able to put a substantial amount down on their home. And at their age, and in our community, debt is rampant, so it's very common. I mean, there's not a lot of jobs necessarily here, so it's not like a booming economic area. So for them to stay ahead of the curve there really means a lot. My son, who'll be going to school this fall, I'm excited about that. So I'm trying to really get them to start without debt and understanding how to make money work for them. It's something I didn't learn for a long time, and I feel like I'm still learning. I just finished listening to Rich Dad, Poor Dad for the second time on audio, just to kind of let that really settle in and just marinate. So tell me, you had mentioned Facebook. Facebook's like this big topic in our industry in particular because so many people use Facebook to sell. I mean, marketplace and private groups and Facebook ads and just creating different campaigns that matter because that gets you in front of people. Obviously, with the younger crowd, you're seeing the emergence of different social media that tends to gain more traction. And Facebook, I think someone called it boomer book to me one time, and I thought that was good. The baby boomers are the only ones on it. I mean, I'm 42, and it is still my primary social media platform that I use for social purposes only. But there is a bit of a declining of Facebook, I think is fair to say, among most marketing people that I speak to would agree that other things are happening. What's your take on that?
Yes, I think Facebook is still, it's still the elephant in the room for a lot of these situations. It's the biggest social media platform out there to date in terms of a social experience, and I think it's still a great place to get on there and market, particularly with Marketplace. Like you can do a lot of cool stuff with Marketplace, right? In terms of the paid ads though, like it is very saturated. So if you've been running Facebook ads for the past 5 years, you would have really noticed a massive increase in what it's costing you to get exactly the same result, right? So like the costs on Facebook have just gone up massively. And that's just because of just because of the age of the platform. You know, like if you look at any of the platforms, they all sort of start off, I sort of call it like an adoption curve, like everyone sort of gets in there and advertising, and then, you know, it comes up, everyone's on it, and then it gets saturated by the end, right? So, and that's kind of where Facebook is today. And if we look back a little bit, like back in the 90s, it was all, you know, email marketing, and open rates today aren't what they were back in the 90s, right? And then, you know, all of a sudden, then it was, you know, Google search. Google search was fantastic for what, like half a decade, and then it got really expensive and everyone got on there, right? So Facebook, same thing. It was like, you know, go back 10 years, Facebook was amazing for paid marketing, but you know, now it's super expensive. And kind of YouTube is where Facebook was a decade ago, if that makes sense. So, and the cool thing there is with YouTube, you can actually, it has very similar. So I think during COVID, it overtook Facebook in daily users, but it's very similar. Like it's probably only like 10% in it or something crazy. So there's a lot of people on YouTube and a lot of space. I think only 8% of the marketers in the US are actually advertising on YouTube. So whereas it's something like, you know, 80 to 90% of marketers are marketing on Facebook. So it's a similar size, and you've only got like 1/10 of the people there. So that's why it is just a massive opportunity at the moment. So
that sounds completely accurate, especially in comparison to even my own experience of selling advertising on the podcast. I try to keep those conversations separate from the conversation with the guest, but being you're in marketing, let's hit it. Let's talk about that. I sell audio advertising, but then I sell video advertising. Video advertising, terribly more complex, terribly more work, cost way more for work with an AV tech to be able to actually do that, and provides more clarity or information. Harder to sell. It's been just harder to sell, even with more value. It's kind of funny that you're talking about something that's right there in my wheelhouse right now, because the audio side's great. Matter of fact, I'm beyond impressed by what we've been able to do. And it's a little bit easier of a project to focus on just audio. The beauty of a podcast is it sort of means different things to different people, right? Could be an audio only, could be video. I've added video to it sort of as a secondary, in creating a YouTube channel, and now starting to build that platform, while still maintaining the avenues where people can listen otherwise. But even in my own advertising adventures, it seems people just don't navigate. They just don't navigate to the video as well. Yet it's the future. That's what I can't understand, is most of the rest of the world is seeing YouTube and video as a absolutely primary marketing opportunity for the future. Or am I missing the mark there, Ben?
No, I think you're 100% on the mark. So the cool thing with audio is it's easy, right? And it's same with Facebook. Like you can put a Facebook ad up with just an image, like super easy, right? And I think that's a bit of the barrier to entry, is people have to create a video, and then it becomes like, oh man, that's hard. I have to be on the video, I'm not really an actor type person, and a lot of people like struggle with that concept. But the cool thing is, like, the thing with YouTube is just so native, like it's just so raw. So like you look at the content on YouTube, it's literally just people sitting there with microphones like this, or like it's not like television studio version of video, right? So just keep them really simple. Like literally probably 90% of our clients and or me, like we all shoot our ads straight off our phones, right? Like, and usually a gimbal, like you do not need to create like high-end ads, right? And in a lot of ways it hurts you, because like people want to do business with people. So you want to come across as like relatable and authentic as possible. So if you can and the difference with YouTube to like a Facebook ad, if you can do like a YouTube ad that actually helps people, so you can do an ad that actually delivers value into the world. And we spoke about it a little bit before, that's entertaining and has a bit of education to it at the same time. You'll actually cut through a lot of the noise And if you can help people in a video ad, usually ad's going to go for like, 2 to 2.5 minutes, or maybe a minute and a half. Don't go over 3 or it just gets expensive. Now the cool thing there is you can actually say a lot in a YouTube ad. Like you can actually like really help someone with whatever their problem is, and then say, hey, check out my website or whatever it is that you want to do. And I guess that's the big difference. Like everyone looks at it like, oh, I have to create this promotional ad. And probably some of the biggest mistakes we see is people just come from Facebook with some sort of like really salesy, like pattern interruptive ad and run it on YouTube. And it just doesn't work as well, because people on YouTube are there for like, they're not there to like scroll through and be interrupted while they're looking at like pictures of cats and what people had for dinner, right? They're literally on YouTube to be there and have a look at like the content that they like, or they're searching something around the things that they're interested in. So if you're targeting someone on YouTube, your ad has to resonate with that vibe, right? So that's where a lot of people go wrong, and they just make it way too complicated. I mean, having the right ad structure is important, but yeah, at the end of the day, like, the other cool thing too is like on YouTube, the first 30 seconds of your ad is free as well. Whereas on Facebook, it's only like the first 3 to 15 seconds, right? So you can say a lot in 30 seconds before you're even charged, right? So there's just so many cool things about YouTube ads. So
and remind me to ask you, what the common, like I've based a lot of mine off of advertising placement, even off of traditional television, but what you're saying. So I went to a website to kind of get some coschedule.com. I was just looking up some information, some generalized information on marketing to kind of get my brain churning about, what our discussion. And you don't know just exactly how much that matches the public perception out there. They said, talking about content marketing, they said the hype around content has been building steadily for years, and with good reason. People want to be helped and informed more than they want to be sold to and interrupted. And that's literally almost verbatim what you just said. So I found it interesting. I took that quote down. Help inform your audience, solve their problems. It's sort of the approach that I took with the podcast is build relationships, and hopefully advertising comes along later. But generally speaking, if you can be a resource to help, people are always going to accept your help. I mean, it's like when I pray for somebody, it's not happened yet, but I'm sure it will. But so far, I've never ran into anybody that I say, "Can I pray for you?" and they say no. Generally, it's yeah, sure. I would appreciate that. So, why is it so 3 seconds to like? Why does Facebook do that versus YouTube staying 30 seconds? Like I said, I typically kind of gauge mine off of a typical 60-minute television commercial for my advertising and how much I want to allow on the show, because I don't want to just bombard people. Okay, but obviously you want them to purchase, and you want to provide reasonable, measurable results so that you can continue to get those advertising dollars, right? That's what keeps the show floating. So
yeah. Yeah, so I guess, look, on Facebook, you're kind of charged by impression. So that means like anyone who sees your ad or interacts with it, right? On YouTube, depending on how you do it, you're usually charged either per view or per click, right? So what that means is a view on YouTube is like 30 seconds, whereas on Facebook, the best you'll get on Facebook is a through play campaign at like 15 seconds if you set it up right. Okay, so you literally get double the amount of time to get across what you want to say. And that's actually a long time. Like 30, you can say a lot in 30 seconds. So the way we structure it is the first 5 seconds of a YouTube ad is really important. That's super key.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, that's cool. Just one sec. Can you get this dog, please?
Oh man, you need to put him on camera.
Hello, doggy. There you go. Thank you,
What was his name?
Trent's my son. The dog is called Dashy, actually. So
okay, Dashy. I love.
Yeah, cool. he's got through to my upstairs, and yeah,
real life moments, Ben. They're the absolute best.
Oh, they're so cool. But yeah, sorry. So basically, 30 seconds is a long time to be able to get your message across. So the first 5 seconds is really important. That's what you would call your hook. So you'll be watching YouTube and you know where you can skip the ad, right? Like we're all watching our content and then all of a sudden we're like, ad pops up, you're like, damn it. And you want to skip it, right?
Right.
So the cool thing with that is that 5 seconds is really critical because that's where you will put your hook. So your hook's really good. Like if this is the first part of the ad structure. So hook, elevator pitch, story, close. So with the hook, you really want to like hook people in like fishing, right? Like you want to throw some bait out there and hook them in. So I usually like something that has a rhetorical question, has the answer yes to it. So if you can get someone to say yes in the first sentence that you say, chances are they're going to hang around. And there's lots of different ones you can do, like problem, you could do a solution, you could do whatever you want to do, right? So like a hook for something, like if something that we would do would be like, are you sick of burning money on Facebook ads? Okay. Most people who are running advertising be like, yeah, I hate that. Right. So, and then you'll move into like an elevator pitch. Now, this elevator pitch just finishes off that first 30 seconds. So I would usually say something. If you don't know what an elevator pitch is, it's kind of like if you work in a high-rise building, it's the pitch that you give your boss when they're going from the top floor to the bottom floor to either get a promotion or get your idea across or whatever. So usually it's less than 30 seconds, okay? Now, if you're only being charged for the first 30 seconds, what you want to do is like do an elevator pitch that sort of helps people a bit. So I would do something like, hey, email open rates suck, Google ads are super expensive, and Facebook ads are about as reliable as the politicians promise. What you really need to look at is YouTube ads that can really help you grow and scale your business. The opportunity of a lifetime right now. We've generated millions of dollars sales across a wide range of YouTube ads. If you're interested in how that works, click the link below. And here's how it can help you. And then I just roll into how it helps them and how it works and whatever, right? Now you can see like that's a very quick elevator pitch, but you can see I've got a bit of credibility in there. I've talked about your problem. I've said, look, here's how you can solve it if you just listen on to the next bit. And of course, the next bit's where I get paid. So you get to say all of that before you're charged, which is kind of cool, right? So the story, that's what you want to help people pick like 2 or 3 things that is actually going to like give people value. And then close, like at the end, the last close bit, you'd say something like, hey, look, you found value in that. And, you think that this might be able to help you, click on the link and you'll be taken to a page that looks like this. And so on and so on, right? So that's pretty much all you need to do for a YouTube ad. So the story, just pick a couple of cool bits that will actually help people, and that's around your offer or your product or service or whatever it might be, and go from there. So,
man, that's good. What do you think is the sort of the resistance? I think for me, it's just a matter of exposing more advertisers or potential advertisers to the platform. But obviously we work in a conservative industry, so not everybody may, watch YouTube very often, or maybe even have a social media, account in many ways. But what do you think is, how do you expand the knowledge that video is what others should be doing that much more? One of the things that we've been adding is we actually did a video for, as a former boss of mine. It was, I worked as a sales manager with Summit Portable Buildings in Farmington, Missouri. And we went over and did a video, for him, the customer experience. We went to the customer's place and we want to do more of that. So you can either brand that around, Shed Geek, doing that, or just Shed Geek comes and does that for your company in general. I don't have to be in the photo, for any reason. So normally you probably haven't seen me, but typically I wear a white shirt, suspenders, and a bow tie. It's just sort of part of the brand. And it's fun. I really like it because, I don't know. People laugh, and it's actually the logo. It matches the logo. So the branding is all kind of unilateral there, in that I am the brand of the logo that you see, and when I walk around, I kind of embrace that. It's fun. So I don't know. I'm having the time of my life. What can I say, Ben? I enjoy it. I found a career I love, and just want to keep doing this. So, I don't even remember where I was going with that question. Why? So I lost my train of thought. I guess I'm trying to figure out with video, I'd love to do more of that for my audience, for those that are actually shed manufacturing, to not just bring them something educational and entertaining, but try to do something that brings value. That video content is where it's at to me in terms of getting in front of your customer. You mentioned something whenever I first got on here, and the audience probably didn't get a chance to hear that, but you said, hey, send this over to me, this podcast. This is why being on a podcast is helpful, right? We're going to chop this up, right? We're going to promote this as well. What most people seem to be missing is that they are not repurposing the content, whether it's being on a podcast, creating backlinks to their website, throwing it on their website, the interview, the customers go to the website and want to know more about them. Well, wouldn't it be cool to see a podcast or an excerpt from a podcast where they're talking about how they feel authentically about their brand?
Yeah, I think that's really important. Exactly. Like I actually like the problem with being really good at paid ads is you suck at creating content usually, right? So for me, like, we're quite good at paying for ads and getting leads and sales and stuff like that. What we're not so great at is, or me personally, is creating content. And I know I need to be creating content, right? Now the reason why I love ads is because I know if I put $1 in, I should be getting, so many dollars back, and it's repeatable. So I can do that all day long. So then when it comes to like, oh man, you have to create content, I'm like, oh, really? It's like just another thing. But I know it's so important for me to do. And, so this is my social media management team actually like book me in for these podcasts because they know that if I get on here, there'll be video content that they can chop up and put on my social media feeds and so on, right? So that's why they love me doing it. And I think, I've actually just hired some people in-house to make that happen because I know that if I was left to my own devices, it probably wouldn't, right? So yeah, like I get it. Like I think every business owner struggles with maybe there's some aspect they're struggling with, whether it's like creating videos for ads or just getting their marketing out there or hating social media in general, right? Like, and I think that's okay. Like you don't have to like love it, but I think for me, I like these sort of things because I can come on and help people. And so for that, I'm like, yeah, I can get on podcasts and talk to people about, what the questions of that industry is and how we can help them with what they're doing. I can get behind that, right? Just standing there creating content on like, here's the 5 things about, whatever, like it does my head in. So, and I think for a lot of business owners, you'll resonate with something along those lines, right? So for me, the way that we cut it up is usually YouTube is our primary channel. So you have like a primary channel usually. Now it could be like a podcast like this, or it could be a YouTube channel, or you need to pick a video content strategy, right? Usually something that's got at least like 8 to 10 minutes worth of content that you can break up, right? Now, what you can do with that content, like, is you can break it up into smaller sections. So like, a 10 or 15 minute video that you might create could become 5 or 6 like YouTube shorts or TikToks or Facebook Reels or Insta Stories or whatever, right? Like you can actually cut them up and put them across platforms. So like one piece of content can then become like 10 or 20 or 30 pieces of content across multiple platforms. Now, do I recommend that you sit there and like edit all this stuff up and cut it all up and deal with that? Absolutely no way, right? Like as a business owner, you should be spending your time like doing better and more important high level activities, right? And even if you're just getting started, like you can do that really quite cheap. I mean, you can go to something like Upwork or Fiverr or even like Online Jobs PH and just find someone that you pay maybe $50 a week or $100 a week to just chop all of that up and send it cross platform for you. Like it doesn't have to be, you don't have to make it hard for yourself is I guess what I'm getting at, right? So yeah, so like obviously it's important, and I guess at the end of the day, if you're really wanting to reach more people, you need to go where the attention is. And if we are in a war of attention to get people's attention and so on. And today, like less people are watching TV and more people are on YouTube or on social media or, listening to podcasts and those sorts of things. So your audience is already there waiting. I guess you creating content is just a really cool way of serving them. It's kind of how I look at it. So
what do you feel like is some of the best ways to create ROI? You talked earlier in the podcast about email marketing and how the open rates were so high in the 90s. I mean, after the dot-com boom where everybody got an email address, there's a lot of folks who would open every single email. And now, I mean, we just have these massive spam, accounts where we just keep throwing them over there and getting them out of here. But then, maybe we create we do a weekly email blast. I mean, this is a good example. And I don't know, maybe 3,000-4,000 people. And I watch the open rate to see, and would obviously love to increase that open rate, because the value behind that is to try and spread more content, right? To try and get more information. Hey, here's who's on the show. Here's what they're talking about. So outside of just getting them to listen to the podcast, I've had really good success with that. I love the email side of things. Encourage people to go to info@shedgeek.com and subscribe to it. Or if not, shoot me an email. I'll get you subscribed. But email campaigning is not dead, right? It's actually got a very, very good ROI, as if I understand it correctly. I've even heard some sources say as much as a 3,800% increase. So for every dollar you spend, $38. And I don't know that I'm seeing that kind of value, but is that doable in other places?
Oh, yeah, of course. The cool thing with email is you own the list, right? And that's a big difference. So you want to, Russell Brunson will talk about this a little bit, about moving traffic from where you don't own it to where you do own it is really important. So for example, you own an email list. No one can really take that away from you, right? So if you would, if you had a big email list and nothing else, you can make money from that. And it's probably one of the most underutilized things, in any business. I was doing some consulting with a firm the other day, and I was like, oh, we have this email list of thousands of people who bought our stuff. I'm like, do you email them? Oh yeah, once a month. I'm like, it's crazy. Email them once a week. I said, what you could do even is hire someone to ring them and see if there's anything else you could sell them. You'll probably make heaps of money just from doing that. And I think that's for a lot of business owners, where they do that, I have this email list and, they're all people who bought from me, but I've never really gone back out to them and see if they want to buy anything. Well, a buyer's a buyer, right? So getting back in front of them is super key. And don't get me wrong, I love email. We have email lists in every company that I run, and you want to get out to as much of them as possible, right? So the only problem is getting in touch with them isn't what it was previously, right? Less people are, checking their emails. Most people have multiple email accounts, all of that. Even reminders for training and stuff that we'll do is now we really want to get their phone number so you can text remind them that something's coming up or that you've got a big thing happening, because so many people just won't read their emails. So I still think it's super powerful, and every business owner should most definitely do it. And it's probably one of the most valuable assets you'll have in your company is your list, if you treat it properly, right? Don't just spam them, actually help them. And yeah, I think, 100% really, really cool. And then it's about, how do you grow your list? If you've got a list and you know how to use it, how do you get more people on it? And that's where things like paid marketing and stuff like that all come into play. So
texting, sort of the primitive way to communicate. I received 2 phone calls and about 4 texts since I've been on this podcast. The 2 phone calls I got, one was a quick response that said, on a podcast, can I call you back when I'm finished? The other, I just used the automated response. Can I call you back later? I can still respond to those, and without me saying so, the audience might not have even known that I had. Is that not one of the primary ways that we know we're going to communicate, because it's just so simple to shoot a quick text over?
I think so. You want to be the welcome guest and not the unwelcome pest, right? So that's probably a big one. So if you just start spamming texting people, you can send me an email that I'm not going to read, and it won't annoy me as much as if you send me a text or text me 3 times. That will actually annoy me, right? So you've got to, with text, you will get the person. So if you're going to, and again, it's the whole war of attention thing, right? If you can get their attention, then that's great. But you want to be, like welcome to be there. Like, you don't want to just be like, otherwise people will just opt out and you lose them.
The war of attention. I'm going to have to write that down. It makes me think of like the social dilemma, how we are the product, right? The thing is constantly trying to get in front of someone's attention. Shameless plug here for a couple of my sponsored affiliates, Diversified Payment, a payment processing platform that I partner with. They talk about, being able to text the customer the bill, whether it's a recurring residual bill or a one-time cost. That's one of the reasons I really partnered with them, is they have some really cool programs. And then Lead Furno, also another sponsored affiliate, who they have a texting platform on that connects to the website, just the same as you'd see on any website you go to. You're typically going to see the little bubble that pops up in the corner, and you can real-time text with somebody, it's just so imperative that they make it to your website. They may not look any farther, but if they see a nice little cottage shed on your website, it would be really nice whenever they see a little button that says speak to someone, and within 20 seconds you're having a conversation that turns into a real lead. So obviously reasons for wanting to partner with some of these platforms that do such a great job of using the tools that are most likely to get the attention in this war, right? So what a clever war of attention. I like that. It seems to be what we're constantly doing. For me, primitive communication means in person, secondary phone call, third text, because things are so misconstrued through text and email. It's hard to read tone and inflection. So it's very imperative for me to want to see you, and if possible, talk to you face to face. Beyond that, I don't know, everything you're saying is just good information as a whole for any business. Do you guys do any kind of shed business in Australia, specifically portable buildings, portable sheds, offices, anything of that nature?
Australia is massive. In terms of that, like we actually have a really, really big shed culture here. So even like residential people will be, a man's shed's his castle, that whole thing, where, like you go out there and you do hobby stuff. But I guess like bigger wise, like commercial, particularly where I live in Western Australia, so for example, like Australia is the same size as the US, if you put it like, LA all the way to New York, right? And Western Australia, where I live, it's literally half the size of the country of the US, like just one state. And we have a lot of mining here, so a lot of like resource and stuff like that. And the portable, like, sheds that move around that go out for construction or mining and that sort of stuff is massive. Like it's absolutely huge. It's big industry over here. But all the way through to just even commercial sheds and stuff like that. Like there's just a lot of like resource and like we have labor shortages around like people to help go into those sheds and stuff like that. Like it's a massive business here. So sheds here for sure, really, really huge. All the way through from is smaller to bigger residential sheds, but the portable sheds and stuff like that here is huge. It's a very big business. So
how do you view that business model? And I'm not sure how much you've looked into that in the US. How do you sort of view that business model versus what you see here or in other countries?
Yeah, so for sheds, look, I'm not an expert on sheds and like the differences between the different countries. I don't know if I could speak to that too much.
I'm curious myself. I'm not either.
Yeah. So I think like I think one of the big differences is here, like all the sheds are steel, tin. Like we have a problem with like a little thing called white ants that just like eats wood. Like even our houses in Western Australia are all brick. There's no real timber houses, right? The roofs and that are timber, but for the most part, it's like brick or steel, right? So that's kind of how we roll. So I guess like the construction materials here are a little different in terms of the way that happens. We do have a lot of like, particularly for the bigger commercial guys, like they'll have a lot of like portable, almost like semi containers that they've turned into sheds and stuff like that. There's a lot of that going on. So yeah, I guess in that way it's a little different. Like there's no real like timber form sheds, like some of the barns and stuff that you'd see on farms, like of driving through the States or having a look at those. Like we don't really have any of those sorts of sheds. Like it's all just like tin and steel or portable stuff. So
one of my favorite podcasters, he runs sort of a sales related podcast, and he always coins the term leaders or readers. From a marketing perspective, what do you suggest as good reading material that for any business owner would be appropriate?
Yeah, look, if you've never read any sort of marketing, like on marketing books, there's just so many, right? Like I like some Russell Brunson stuff in terms of marketing. What else have we got in the bookcase here? Usually I'm sort of more business strategy. Savvy Subaru's book on like Sell It Like Crazy. That's pretty cool. I'm just having a look around. What else have we got on the bookshelf there?
You've got quite a few.
Yeah. Like it's really hard. Like books are like picking your favorite children, right? So I guess for me, like the marketing books are cool, but I think just getting out and doing it is probably better, right? So you'll learn more by doing than reading some books on it. But yeah, I guess those are probably some pretty good places to start. Having a look at those two. I like to read more business strategy books. So it's like the books I read are a little different. It's funny because I'm in marketing. Most of the marketing stuff that I'll look at are usually the courses that I deal with, or like I'm in like some high level masterminds. Like that's really powerful. Like if you can get into a group of people who are doing really awesome stuff, like that's really powerful too. But yeah, so I mean, it's funny because like I do have a few books on that, but most of my books are about like business strategy or investing and stuff like that. So yeah, a little bit of a different vein.
What would be sort of the difference in maybe business strategy, marketing, and even sales? Sales, I've mentioned this on the show before, but I mean, sales is very different than marketing, right? And they kind of get lumped into the same category. And I know in the shed industry here in the U.S., when you wear a lot of hats, you are the marketer, the sales professional, and so many other things. How do they really differ, though?
Yeah, so I think like for most businesses, like we work with a lot of different businesses. I'd say businesses under about $200,000 or $300,000 a year, like marketing and sales, they'll lump that together, right? Like if they're sort of getting a bit bigger, like they're $500,000 or 7 figures plus, or like multiple 7 figures, usually they'll have different departments. So at that level, you have a marketing department and a sales department, right? And I think small businesses miss the difference, right? So for example, like a marketing department is to get the leads, right? Like their whole job is to go out to social media or wherever and get leads to come in, like qualified leads, give their name, phone number, and email in most service-based businesses, which is what we're talking about here. Then what will happen is you have a sales team, and their job is to get the leads that marketing gets and convert those leads into actual dollars, right? So sales. So they'll be selling them maybe sheds or construction materials for sheds, or like whatever it might be. Like they're the salespeople. They're the pointed tip of the spear, if that makes sense. Whereas the marketing will more be like the hunt, like how do we find people who are the right people for the salespeople to talk to? And this is where like marketing and sales kind of clash heads a little, because they'll be like, oh, the leads are rubbish, like you're sending us bad leads. And then marketing will be like, hey, we've sent you heaps of leads, you guys aren't converting, you're messing with our commissions. And so the fight starts, right? So like if you're a smaller business and you're doing all of that yourself, I think like just even subconsciously or consciously, like separate the two. Like lead cost me this much for a lead, we need this many leads to make a sale. And they're two different metrics. So like lead cost is in marketing, close on sale is in sales, right? So there is some overlap, but you do need to separate like your metrics out, because like if we're getting 10 people before we get a sale, that lives in sales. Maybe we could do it if we only got 5 people and our conversion rates have doubled, right? But marketing is all like, hey, look, it cost us $20 a lead. Well, maybe we could get it for 5, right? So they're kind of does that make sense? Like the difference between the two.
Absolutely.
How you separate them out. So
absolutely. I love the explanation. Couldn't agree more. I love that you put a number on it. It's kind of a good measurable number there to say, maybe $500,000 or so, you should maybe consider having an internal salesperson, an internal marketing person, and really understanding the difference in the two. Anybody can say they're, marketing expert, or anybody could say a sales expert, right? But I think the only way to do that is to measure those things. That the problem becomes really the tools in which you use to measure. If the tools are wrong that you're using to measure, it's like the way I explained it here in a recent Facebook post is it's similar to standardized education. I think maybe Mark Twain said, if you judge a elephant on their ability to climb a tree, they'll fail every time, but a monkey will succeed constantly. And maybe you just need the right teacher. For instance, a good example is I'm terrible at math. I don't know if I'm actually bad at math or if I just got bad teaching early on. I'm not trying to blame anybody. Let me be clear here. I won't follow my point. My son doesn't even study, and he's genius at it. Well, he's maybe I should give more credit to his mother for that, but he's really good. I mean, he's taking, really high level weighted classes in high school to finish his associate's degree before he even graduates. So, I mean, why it came to him so naturally, I'm not sure. And maybe it had to do with, the standardized education, thought behind that is, are we measuring people's intelligence, or are we measuring their memorization? Right. So I don't know. I tried to tie that into marketing and sales. I hope it didn't feel too miserable for the audience.
I think coming back to that though, like it is the number, like the number that you measure is really important. So, and you don't have to be great at math to pull that off if you know what numbers that you're actually measuring, right? So like put that analogy back into perspective, like the number you want to measure, the front end is how much did it cost a lead? The number you want to do for sales is like, what is our conversion rate? How many leads does it take to make a sale? And then the one number to rule them all, like if you ever watched Lord of the Rings or anything like that, the one number to rule them all is return on ad spend. Well, how much did it cost us to get $1, and how much did it turn into in sales? So like if it cost me $1 and I made $3, that'd be like a 3 or 4 times return on ad spend. Okay. So that's like, that's a really good number, right? So, and to be a profitable business, you have to be a minimum 3 times return on ad spend, because you've got costs, right? Like you've got like staff to pay, you've got bills, overheads, all of that, marketing, fulfillment on the product. If you're only spending $1 and making $2 back, you just won't have the margin to run a profitable business at scale, right? So like that's if you're going to measure a metric, like the one number to measure everything, that's the number you want, and that's the stat you need. So,
and what is the best current ad spend that you're going to get your best bang for your buck in marketing?
The best ad spend that you can do, like for us at the moment, if you're going out to warm audiences, like people who already know, like, and trust you, getting your email list, like we just talked about before, or going out to your, like people who already follow you on YouTube or Facebook or something, and getting back in front of those people, that's the best return on ad spend that you could possibly have, right? The best way to do that is probably the Google Display Network. I don't know if you've heard of that before, but maybe you've been to a website or looked at a product on Amazon or eBay. Then everywhere you go online, you just see that product or that person like pop up on like website banners and stuff like that. That's called the Google Display Network in most cases. It's part of like YouTube ads and Google ads. It all lives in the same place. But the cool thing is you can remarket to anyone who's been to your website or bought anything or like checked you out before. And that has the highest return on ad spend of any platform that we spend money on. And we spend money on all of them, right? So, and what it does is the great thing about that is you only pay when someone clicks, right? So you're literally in front of everyone all the time. It costs you nothing until they click, right? So that's why it's really, really, really cool for like remarketing purposes, like getting your message back out in front of people, like people who might have, watched your podcast or have watched your content or, engaged with you, visited your website, like all of that stuff, really, really important. That would be my number one if I was to rank them. My number two is obviously YouTube ads, because you run out of warm audiences pretty quick, right? Like you've only got a certain amount of email list, you only got a certain amount of people following you on social media. And then it's all about like, how do we get new people into the fold, right? So we can remarket to them with our display ads and we can send them emails and we can call them and all of that, right? So that for me at the moment is definitely YouTube ads, being able to target cold people based on what they're interested in. You can do some cool things with YouTube ads, like target people based on how much income they have, all the way through to like what they're searching on Google search and what websites they visit. You can really get really, really dialed in. And then from there, it's all about making sure that return on ad spend stays well over 3 times. And that's a very simple like way of looking at it, but works really, really well. So
I think it's great. YouTube's the second largest search engine, and that's why videos are so imperative and on the rise. Even though YouTube's been around for a while, I just can't help but think that it's going to continue to blossom and grow. And we're doing our best at Shed Geek to try and learn all the details that we don't have and bring them to you, and have guests like yourself on here that offer up that value. And this relationship just works beautiful because it's a win-win-win for everybody. And sure hope you get good content creation. I know we sure will. I appreciate you coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Ben is with Titan Marketing. Ben, really appreciate just you being here today. I'm going to go ahead and take us off air here. Then I'll just chat for a few minutes if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. That's all good.
All right. Thanks so much.